Had James laughing. I was just grooving to the music. Anyway, I have a quick question. Have you ever watched a magician do something and like it was amazing, right? It's just like, wow, it was amazing, right? And then you found out what the trick is, and then it wasn't so amazing anymore, right? Well, it's the same thing with goal setting, problem solving, all that stuff, right? But see, there's a huge difference between like, you know, going from seeing this big challenge, this big, huge thing, right? And then somebody like your teacher or whatever, right, tells you how to do it, right? What the secret is, and then it was almost like a letdown, right? Oh, that was simple, right? But the reality is there's a huge difference between knowing the secret, knowing how to make something happen, and actually doing it. We'll talk about that more as soon as we get back. So, the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world. And that's still my story. And here we are. Welcome to episode 109 of KUDEN Podcast. And so we'll just jump right into things. I will be posting a new video, actually two of them here, within the next couple of hours. We just shot some of these things, and I've got a whole list of these things that we're going to be doing, new content coming out. So if you're not following us on YouTube, make sure you're doing that. Excuse me. So where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, I know. One of the videos that we shot was three ways to escape from like a wrist grab kind of thing, right? And could be clothing grab, could be anything like that. This time around we did wrist grabs, just a couple of things out of our Module 1 curriculum. And so one of the very first technique, right? It's really a down and dirty kind of thing, not really like ninja secret, right? Kind of thing, right? But in the video, you'll see, right? When I set this thing up, I tell people, right? As soon as you see this, you're going to go, really? Right? But the number of people that go through the program and see this, right? While like half their brain says, well, duh, well, that's not like, I didn't need to come to like a martial arts program or a self-defense program to learn that thing. But the other half of their brain is going, oh, crap, I never thought of that, right? It's kind of like when we're doing knife defense, or actually knife retention, right? Weapon retention. It doesn't matter if it's a gun, knife, whatever, right? And so we've got this weapon and we're fending this person off or whatever. And somebody comes in, it could be that person, could be one of their friends or whatever, right? And they lock down on this arm. They grab the clothing, they grab the wrist, the arm, whatever, right? To keep us from being able to use this weapon, right? And then they're always surprised when I just reach over and transfer hands, right? So they were fixated on this thing, right? So I know, sounds like super, super simple, but if we don't think about it, if it's not wired in, it doesn't matter what our intellect understands. It doesn't matter what we look at and go, well, that's obvious, man. If we're not thinking about it under pressure when we need to solve the problem, then as far as we're concerned, right, as far as our reality is, the that simple technique is an elephant in the room, right? It's just another enormous problem, enormous challenge that we have to solve, right? And so part of our training, right? Part of martial arts training, if we approach it the right way, isn't about learning tricks. Of course, we're going to learn lots and lots of techniques, right? But part of it is in approaching how to handle problems, how to handle challenges, right? Most people look at it and go, well, we're learning how to defend against a punch. We're learning how to defend against. It's a ginormous problem. In the moment when somebody's violent, out of control rage, or even worse than that, cold, calculated intent, right, is coming at us, this is a huge challenge, right? And we have to see that our training is problem solving 101, 102, 103, 505, whatever, right? So I got to really thinking about this. And I was actually working with one of my mentors here in the last couple of days. And this is in a different realm from martial arts, self defense, whatever, right? And a couple of things that he said really like stuck. And like it was one of those things that when it happened, I had to jot it down really, really quickly. Not so much for what I was working with him on. I was working on some other problems and challenges for myself. It wasn't about that. I had to jot this thing down. Like, oh my God, this would be great to share with students and listeners of KUDEN and other parts of our training, right? Our stuff. Because what really struck me, right? One of these things was, how do you have a good idea? Right? Everybody's looking for that one really good idea that's going to make a huge difference, right? They're looking for that secret technique, that secret move, right? If I could just look at that one special part of his body, so that if I watch that, right, then I'll know what he's doing, right? Everybody's looking for the secret, right? How do I have a really big idea? How do I have a really good idea? Well, the secret to having a really good idea, the way successful, uber successful people handle things. I don't care if they're athletes or in their business, or in our case, right? You got this martial arts, self-defense kind of thing going on or whatever, right? It's not about coming up with one good idea. It's actually about coming up with a butt ton of ideas, right? Become an idea machine. But it's not just about coming up with ideas, right? Because we've talked about this when it comes to our San Mitsu, our triple secrets for success, and all that, right? There's a lot of people that have lots of ideas, right? They have lots of things, they have lots of plans and whatnot, right? But sometimes it's acting on them, right? The uber successful have lots of ideas, but what they end up doing is they create plans around those ideas and they put them into action, and then they wait and they see what the results are. And then there's always going to be certain combinations or certain ideas, right? One or two that really produce massive results. And then what they do is they just ignore the other ones. They just turn off whatever resources or activities or whatever, and they go all in on those things that are obviously working, right? So instead of like coming up with one, doing it, and then if it's not producing the results, just going, well, shit, that didn't work, right? Well, okay, but how many other ones do you have, right? It's kind of like going fishing. Instead of just tossing one lure or one worm or hook or whatever in the water, you toss a whole bunch in, right? But once you get it, it's kind of like, we talk about ninjutsu all the time and how it was one of the original, if not the original, mixed martial art. I mean, think about all the things that are in it, right? This is not a kicking style. It's not a punching style. It's not a grappling style. It's right. It's not about style. It's not about one way to do things and then hoping to God or whoever, whatever, right? That when somebody attacks you, that's what you're going to need, right? It's about loading up a toolbox with as many options, as many tools, as many techniques as possible, right? And then, we're looking at what we're doing. There's 9 different schools, which means 9 different perspectives or approaches on handling given problems, right? Not counting our Mikyo mind science, not counting any of that stuff, and not counting all of the other schools that Hatsumi Sensei either had Menkyo Kaiden in or that he had trained in over his lifetime, right? I think the count that I have somewhere in my notes is somewhere between 100 and 150 different systems, right? Everybody likes to count 9, right? And I get it, right? He had Soke ship and they want to focus on those things, but there's this synthesis, right? So you end up with this synergistic effect and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's all of these things, right? So, but we have minimum, right? 9 perspectives, 9 different, ways to handle that, right? Given logical systems, right? But then how many different methods on how many different scrolls in each of these things, right? So again, that's this thing, right? But that's not what I want to talk about. There was this other thing that came up, right? And we were talking about this process, right? And what he threw out this neat little fact, and I had to go fact check and all that, right? So if you read the little thing that I put out, right, the little description, right, and it was on the slide, right, this process was actually used by a person who ate an entire airplane. And then I come to find out that he ate a train as well, right? So how the hell you do that, right? I mean, it's metal and steel and what? Well, there's that old cliche, right? How do you eat an elephant? Well, same thing. You eat it, same way you eat everything else, one bite at a time, right? Now it's going to take longer, but the whole idea is you take whatever the challenge is, whatever the problem is, and you break it down into smaller parts that are easier to work with, right? It's the secret behind our goal setting. It's the secret behind our techniques. It's the secret behind handling a fight. That's why I give everybody frameworks. Instead of just throwing a shit ton of freaking techniques at you, one after another, and then talking about strategies and tactics and all this kind of stuff, we bring everything into frameworks so that you have a workable scientific process. All this stuff is based on it. Just because the past masters didn't formulate it specifically that way doesn't mean that that's not what they're doing. What I and my teachers, because I learned this mindset from them, and they pointed things out in certain scrolls and stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, they were using the exact same process. They just didn't write it out this way, right? But I think one of my skill sets anyway is in being able to take the complex and break it down into smaller chunks so that people can manage it easier, right? And then once they get a handle on that and then they work the process, same thing with working your techniques, same things with working kata, anything like that, right? You do things over and over and over again, and you start to get more and more insights about it and being able to see things from a higher level or a higher vantage point, kind of like one of my teachers used to say, it's the Goodyear blimp view of the sports stadium, right? From any seat within that stadium, you only have a certain view, right? If you're on the field as a player, you have a different view, right? If you're a drone, then when I was growing up, they didn't have those things, but if you're flying the drone or whatever, you got a different vantage point, right? But from that Goodyear blimp or the helicopter, right, hovering over top the stadium, you can see the whole process, right? And you start to get an intuitive sense about what's going on, right? That's one of the paths to mastery. And I know the guys that are all mechanically oriented and just want to memorize a whole bunch of cool moves, right? They think that that's it. The strategist, the tactician, right? They understand that there are techniques and whatnot, but they're not worried about which one. They couldn't care less about which technique works. They just need this particular outcome, right? And then you've got the master who's not thinking about outcomes or anything like that until the problem arises, right? So It's not about content, it's about context, right? And ultimately, it's not about content or context, it's about the challenge, it's about the problem, right? We won't know which tool, which tactic, which strategy, or anything like that until the problem arises. But how? How, right? So here's the idea: the problem dictates the method, right? So, how do we eat an airplane? Or in this case, right, I said it was the eating a sword. Is that what my title is? Yeah, eating a sword, challenge solving, right? And that's the idea, right? So I know there's that goofy picture of me biting down on a sword, right? But there's no way in hell I'm going to eat a sword that way. I'm not even going to eat a sword if it's broken up into smaller pieces that are, even rice size, because it's going to cut up my esophagus when I try to eat it if it doesn't tear up my mouth in the process, crack and shatter my teeth. But again, it's about making the process, breaking things down into the smallest pieces that we could actually work with, right? So how did the guy eat the airplane, right? This is the same way I would eat a sword, right? The way he ate the train, the way he ate the airplane, right? What he did was he ground the stuff down into fine salt or dust like particles, really, really tiny. And then he mixed it with his salt and his sugar. Do you get it? So every time he sprinkled the salt on his food, there was some of this in there. But it was so small that it's not going to hurt him. But over time, he's going to go through that whole stockpile. That's how he ate the airplane, right? But if you think about it, right, when I mentioned somebody used this exact process to eat an entire airplane, your brain probably went to, one, that's impossible. Two, how the hell do you do that? Three, right? I mean, you can't even bite. All these problems arise, which is what the average person does, which is what the mind that's not wired with the process does. There's all these phases that we go through: disbelief, right? Looking for the trick, uh, thinking that it's just bullshit, right? Coming up with all kinds of reasons that it can't be done. Uh, you know, Somebody must have some kind of ability, right? They've got diamond teeth or whatever, right? They've got a digestive tract that is not normal, right? It's the same thing we do with masters, right? With master teachers, right? Well, see, they can do this because people have done that to me over the years, right? Sensei, you don't understand, right? You're able to go to Japan, or you were able to train with this guy or that guy or whatever because all kinds of answers, right? I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and so I can't understand what it means to be poor. I had certain conditions going on in my life, like my wife, had no problem with me doing it, or I was independently wealthy, or all these things that just weren't true, right? I had the same, if not more, problems than every student I've ever encountered. That was an impediment to training, or there was an impediment to getting to Japan, or going on this really cool vacation, or doing this really cool thing. But the only thing I had that they lacked at the moment was, one, the desire to do it no matter what. Two, the belief that I could do it. And three, a plan or a process to make that doable for me. At the moment, right? So I teach those, right? Here you go. You need the desire to do it, the burning desire to do it. It's more important to do it than not, right? Two, the belief that you can do it. And three, here's the process, or at least one process right here. Do it this way, right? There you go. There's your map, right? There's your plan. And then we'll see if they have the fourth ingredient, that they're actually willing to get off their ass and do to work the plan, right? Because after that, right? If we remove everything else, right? You've got the desire, you got the belief that you can do it. You're given a plan. If you don't do it after that, no other bullshit counts, right? Because it's ultimately right here, right? I have to work the plan. I can't let my belief in myself falter, and I can't lose sight of the dream. I can't let myself get distracted by all kinds of other bullshit, right? So it's really a process, and the process is simple. It doesn't matter if we're trying to get to training. It doesn't matter if we're trying to get to Japan. It doesn't matter if we're trying to get to to go on that really cool vacation, or have that job we want, or have that spouse or family or life condition or whatever, or we're trying to eat an elephant or eat a freaking airplane or whatever. It ultimately comes down to, at least with the plan, right, and the process, reducing the problem, the challenge. You don't reduce the challenge itself, right? If the challenge is fucking ginormous, right? My first time going to Japan, holy shit. The only thing I knew was where the dojo was in Japan, and that was in Japan. The rest of it I had to figure out. Okay? How I was going to get there, how I was going to take time off without harming the family, all that kind of stuff, right? But how do I reduce the parts of the problem, the parts of the challenge, to small enough pieces that I can manage as I move along, right? And I get it. Some problems, some challenges, right? It's not just one thing. It's not just money. It's not just time. It's not just, time off work. It's not just, maybe I don't have a plan, but I can develop a plan to get from where I am to the next piece that I know of. And if that's ginormous, break those things down and then systematically take care of the pieces, right? I've got this, I think most of you know this already, unless you're a brand new listener. I've got this program that I made. It's called the Life Purpose Discovery Process, right? And it's a process, right? You can call it a program, call it a system, call it whatever you want, but it's really a process, right? And so the first part of it is really in just kind of coming up with those pieces, right? And in this case, because we're talking about life purpose, right? But this process, all I did was bring this in so that it covered part of the Seishin Teki, right? The personal clarity, the personal development stuff. It's part of that. It's a program in that area of our training, right? Which is the first part for all ninja to be getting. I mean, otherwise we're not trying to be that thing, right? Everybody wants the cool martial arts fight moves, but what are we protecting, right? What is it that's valuable other than my ego, right? We're putting together a program now as an introductory program at the academy, right? It's a 6-week introductory program, but it's not for everybody. It's for a very specific type of person. We'll be making other ones for other types of people and reasons that they would get involved in the training. But this one's designed for men 24 to 55 who just short, right? It doesn't matter to me if they're married. Most of them are, right? But they're concerned about danger in the world and they need to protect what they have, right? Their family, right? They've garnered some, they have a life of value, right? So just in a nutshell, right? It's for men in this age range. And what I'm simply saying is who have something to protect other than their egos, right? You can join a fight school, but it's all about nurturing ego. It's all about getting prizes and belts and all that kind of stuff, right? They're not worried about that stuff. How do I know? I talk to them. They're in my school, right? They have very specific wants, desires, and needs. And you know what? I want to duplicate those people. So instead of just throwing a bunch of shit to the wind and hoping that it sticks and draws those kind of people in, how about if I know those people better than they know themselves, or at least as well as they know themselves, so that I can speak their listen and describe the program in that way, right? So how do I do that? Well, I broke all kinds of things down, right? But we're putting this program together, right? So that they get it. And then our basic the introductory module in our training, right? Yes, I know we're teaching Sanshin. Yes, I know we're teaching certain techniques. We're teaching the base. We're teaching techniques against the most common attacks, not the way they were done in 13th century, 15th, 16th century Japan, the way they're done today. Then we can start broadening out into these other things, because what good does it do me if I'm throwing things out, talking to me, right? I understand what this stuff means. Well, great. Do they? Okay. Because I understand that what I'm offering people and what every instructor is offering people, whether they know it or not, are solutions to problems, right? Solutions to problems. Okay. And I need to give enough solutions to somebody so that they can handle the most common things that are going to come at them. Why the most common? Well, because when somebody thinks about protecting themselves, their family, or whatever, their head goes to the things that they hear about or see the most often. So we get that stuff out of the way, right? Why would I be teaching somebody how to defend against a cold, heartless assassin who doesn't project any intent or anything like that, until I teach them how to protect themselves against the enraged attacker? I don't know, the guy at work that's having marital problems or whatever. And we don't have to put those in that kind of context, but somebody who's just coming at them enraged, right? And giving them some tools to do simple things. Because if you think about it, the realm of self-defense, the realm of survival, is the elephant. It's the train. It's the plane. How many parts, how many perspectives, how many different ways can somebody come at them? How many different environments might they find themselves in? All these different kind of conditions, right? Start small. Basic principles and concepts. That's why my academy is called Warrior Concepts. Okay? Not some Japanese name. I tried that. Not some Japanese name that nobody can understand. Okay? And what I found out way back before I changed the name to an English name, right? Because I live in an English-speaking micro world, right? Was that a lot of people really wanted to do what they found out we were doing. And this is from people that came in months or years after encountering the school, watching us maybe at a demo or seeing one of my videos or whatever, right? But they didn't come in because they were afraid of either being embarrassed or being ridiculed or being actually attacked for mispronouncing the Japanese. Now, had I not known that, I would have continued to throw out the same bullshit and the same stuff that I understand and I know what it means, and I'm going to spend a lot of time, effort, money, resources, whatever, to help them understand so that they can be as cool as me. When in reality, these people are looking for problems or solutions to a problem called, how do I not get my ass handed to me? How do I protect my family, my wife, my kids, whatever, the stuff I've worked hard to amass, right? When somebody else tries to take it away, how do I protect that but they don't know the names to solutions. Because I could say ninjutsu, but you know what? To a lot of people, they have no idea what that means. I know because I've used that. And then I say, well, the ninja's martial art. Oh, ninja. I know the word ninja. You mean like turtles? No. And see, now I've got to redefine it. I've got to explain. How do I take, what do I, right? How do I take, what do we got? I started in 1980, right? Not in other martial arts, but just in this one, right? 90, 2000. How do I take 42 years of study and explain that in 10 seconds or less? Because that's about the attention span of somebody as soon as you start using terminology and perspectives and stuff like that they don't understand. It's the same thing when you're reading, right? The studies show that, or the science shows, if you're reading something and you hit a word that you don't know, you don't understand, your comprehension drops to zero. And then it affects everything that you read after that because your brain is stuck on an open loop. And part of it's trying to resolve that problem. So unless you take time, you go to a dictionary, you type it in your phone or whatever, go to Google and go, what does this word mean? And now you know what it means. And you go back, you just back up to the beginning of that paragraph or the beginning of that sentence, reread it again, knowing what it means, and your brain is now relaxed and will keep on going, right? We have the same kind of problems with the communications, right? Because for me, as somebody who has classes and programs and all that, somebody's lack of knowledge about the thing is the elephant in the room. It's the train or the plane. So I need to break that into smaller pieces, right? Which is why a lot of my videos and a lot more going forward are going to be based on not just putting stuff out, not just explaining ninjutsu, not just giving techniques, but they will actually start with my research on what the majority of the people who are looking for these solutions actually type into Google and YouTube. Word for word. This is what they type in. So I can meet them where they are in their own head. I can meet them where they are relative to the problem. Okay, James and I have discussions about this stuff all the time, right? And so the strategy is in before they even know how big the problem is, because the problem's already big enough to them, right? I might be attacked. Look at all the different freaking ways somebody could attack me, or they've seen one and they're terrified of that, and that's already the elephant in the room, right? So before they even know how big the problem is, before they even know what they don't know, I have to come at them with just a small piece. Let's start here. Let's give you some solutions for this piece, right? This new program, and actually all of our programs, right? I just have to present it in a way that is a solution to a specific type of person, their problems, right? So even though a husband and wife could know there's danger in the world and want to be able to protect themselves and their family, they're both in unique positions. So while I could present the solution, our 6-week program, which I have done, and it's been pretty successful, well, I could do it that way, right? Guys, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter, because of social stigma, upbringing, the way they believe they have a responsibility for protecting, right? It's still going to be different in certain aspects from the moms who have that maternal instinct to protect their kids, right? To protect themselves in certain ways, right? They think of attacks and self-defense differently, right? So this is a process, right? This is a process that I learned within the context of training, right? Because my teacher used to, when I was still a white belt, My teacher would talk about, look, if you're working on a kata, you're working on a technique, and you're having a problem with it, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, whatever, right? You find out where it's not working. And then instead of continuing to try to freaking do the whole damn thing, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's say I'm having problems, right? You take that piece that's not working and you pull it out and you work with it, right? You figure out what the problem is there. Is it the footwork? Is it the balance? Is it the weight transition? Is it the way you're moving? Is it find out what it is, fix it, and then drill the shit out of that until you fixed it and then put it back. Now work the kata. Now work the technique, right? Is everything good? Can we move on to the next one? Or are we bumping up against something else? Now that's been fixed, right? And then instead of, again, everybody tries to work on the elephant. Everybody tries to eat the freaking elephant. Take a bite. Pull it out. Whatever it is. And this works for everything. Every problem. Break it down into smaller chunks, right? Nothing pisses me off more. I smile. I say, oh, I understand. Okay. But nothing pisses me off more than asking a student what they're working on. Because if I don't know what you're working on, how can I help? Right? I just guess, I guess. That's what everybody else is doing. Well, how the hell does that help you? My job is to help you get someplace faster and more efficiently than I got there. My teachers did the same thing for me, right? So confusing you or letting you run around in circles and helping to toss some extra what? Here's some extra marshmallows. That'll bait you to run around and be more confused about more things, right? But nothing pisses me off more than to ask somebody what they're working on and they look at me and go, oh, pretty much everything, right? Which is bullshit. Because no one can work on everything at one time. It's impossible, right? What I have found is that for most people who say they're working on everything, it's a bullshit statement to cover up the fact that they're not working on anything, right? They confuse class time with practice time. So they don't do any practice outside of the classroom, right? Because, the dojo's a gym, right? That's where all the machines are. So that's where I go to work out. Really? What are you working on while you're working out? Okay. What specific problem in the grand scheme of things are you trying to fix today? Right? Because I give you a curriculum in every level that you're in. Most teachers do, some don't. But what is it about those techniques that's giving you a problem? And if every technique is giving you a problem, then what basic is, because all the techniques are built of the same freaking pieces: punches, grabs, kicks, footwork, other body movement, right? Maybe rolls, leaps, what they're the same freaking basic pieces. So if all the techniques have problems, then what basic is screwed? Your kamae sucks, your balance sucks, your footwork sucks. What sucks? Okay. Well, pretty much everything. Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter where we start. Well, I don't know where to start. Okay. So pick something. Okay. If it doesn't matter where you bite the elephant first to take your first bite, doesn't matter which order, pick something. I promise if you pick something, the next part will become evident. And the next part after that will become evident. And if you ever get stuck because you're having a dilemma, or in Mikyo, we present students with quadlemmas, right? So it's not this, but it's not that. But it's not this, but it's not that either. Because the answer is somewhere in here, right? Just friggin' pick something. If you don't know the priority, you pick something. Right? If you're not growing, you're dying. And that goes physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. If you're not moving forward, standing still isn't the same as, well, I'm just kind of hanging, just, taking some time off. So you're backing up. Because if you take time off long enough, you'll forget all the other shit that you think you're still at the same spot on, because your skills deteriorate over time. And even if they didn't, even if your understanding of them doesn't deteriorate, right? Your body has changed over time. It has aged. It's either better physically because you've been working out in other areas, or you took a job that forces you to work out, or you haven't been working out and so your body condition has changed, or you had some injuries along the way, or for whatever reason it's changed. So while you think you can still do the same things, as soon as you go into action, you're going to find out very quickly that you can't. Okay? So now what? Okay. So anyway, the process is the same, right? The process is the same to fix anything, to overcome anything. Know what the problem is. And sometimes problems are so big, right, that you can't see the edges. People think they understand self-defense. People think they understand survival and fighting. The biggest things my teachers did for me was to show me things that I would have to deal with that weren't even in my definition. It wasn't even it wasn't even within my perception. I had no idea how big the problem was that I was trying to solve when I got on board to solve the problem. So now what? I trust the process, okay? Because I'm going to go into these different realms to deal with them, and I need to understand the problem. I need a plan and a training process, right, for approaching it. And I will need tools and skills to apply with the process to handle that thing. Okay. It's the same over and over and over again. Right. So we can either get caught up in the enormity of the challenge or the problem and decide that we can't, or we figure out, or we go to somebody who's figured out how to reduce it into small, yep, here's the pun, bite-sized pieces, and then do it. Stick with it and do it. Okay? Anybody that just looks at the airplane and goes, well, you can't eat a damn airplane. What the hell's wrong with you? Okay? Somebody obviously wanted to prove everybody wrong, figured out how to reduce that metal, leather, springs, wiring, glass, all these pieces into small, tiny pieces that he could ingest and not damage himself, and just needed to stick with the process long enough to go through an entire plane. And then turned around and now I think he just decided he needed to be in World Book of Records or something. Turned around and did the same thing with a train. Now I don't know how big it was, locomotion or locomotive, small. I didn't look into all that stuff, right? The fact that he ingested metal and all these particles, right, and just made it a part of his meal. Just, I'm going to sprinkle salt on anyway, right? So that's what he did. He just blended in with the salt, right? Salt, sugar, that kind of thing, and just. Okay. He made it so small that I'm sure in the beginning he thought, oh, this is cool. This works. But over time, all he had to think about was mixing the right proportion with the next batch of salt that was going to go in a salt shaker. So he only had to think about it every once in a while to make sure he stayed with the process. But he made things so simple that the process just, it became the normal and it took care of itself. Interesting, huh? Okay. So I get it. Some challenges are going to be scary. Some challenges are going to be They're going to cause us to have to work, right? But this goes back to the same thing we've been talking about over and over again, right? I've got to tell you, and I tell my students this all the time. I don't know if I had some kind of innate tenacity that had to come out for me to make it this far. But when I first got involved in this, mentally, emotionally, physically, but more often than not, the biggest part was the belief system that I was beaten into and convinced of and had it proven to me, right, that I was not capable of very much, let alone setting out to be this thing that turned out to be way more than I could have ever imagined and ever defined way back in the day, right? But it had to start somewhere, right? Everything was too big. Talking to somebody, asking someone for something that was not a very close family member that I wasn't afraid of. Hell, becoming a police officer. Holy shit. The only thing that drove me was a passion to protect people from that which I had survived, a passion to never live in fear again. I was missing the belief in myself. It was those things that were so strong that kept me going until I had enough experiences to balance out the lack of belief, until I had enough experiences and teachers pointing out, really, you can't do anything? Really? Seriously? How'd you get here to the seminar? Well, I did this, and that. Really? Huh. I thought you weren't capable of things. You worked this out. So now work out the next big problem. Interesting. Okay. That which we think is impossible is it's still part of problem. It's still part of a process or of the lacking of pieces within the process. Or maybe you don't lack it. Maybe just you're got a couple of students, one in particular I can think of right now. She's come such a long way. She's come so far. It's amazing. She has no idea how different physically she looks. Facial features. It's just looking at her the other day. She looks nothing like the person that walked in the door. Yeah, hair color's the same. Well, she colors her hair, but hair color's the same. She's the same height, same skin tone, as far as pallor and what. Well, no, that's even different, right? Her voice resonates differently. Just not the same person. But she still runs into, and she's getting better with this, but compliments or somebody pointing out, oh, that was good, right? Less and less is the crinkled face, perplexed, or almost a painful look because there's a problem reconciling the reality that's going on and the internal picture or belief about what she is, what she's capable of, what she's actually producing as far as results, all those kind of things. She actually physically, facial features, looks completely different. Right? It's amazing. But I run into this with students all the time. The self-doubt overriding the reality that's actually being reflected in the world. Okay? It's interesting. Anyway, I'm going to bring James back in here because, he's on this personal development path as well. I think he said, I'm going to unlock you here, James, right? Before we got started, didn't you say that you missed the eating a sword part of the slide? Did you miss that? You just didn't read it, or what did you mean by missing it?
No, when I read that, I was like, oh, I've missed that part of the training so far.
I missed that part of the training. So I have to buy a new sword because at some point he's gonna have us bring our blades in. We're gonna munch these babies down. Yeah, yeah, and that's change context or change perspective. Eating a sword can mean something different as well. Like here, hold this for a second, right?
Mm.
Yeah, tsukikomi in a whole new light, right? Tsukikomi is this piercing stop kind of thing, right? It's one of the basic, basic sword techniques that shows up across several lineages, right? Togakure school and all these things, right? Where he comes in with this cut and you, in some form, shift and stab through his torso, through his throat, whatever, right? And the act of that happening, right? Physiologically, the body will jam up. It'll stop, right? Because one of the biggest questions is, well, he's got this sword. Why doesn't he just finish the cut? Well, because that causes the body to move on this blade, and the body is wired to not damage itself, right? So here's this thing that if you're only focusing on mechanical techniques, all these what ifs and bullshit kind of things pop up, right? So you got to understand why, right? Why does the technique work, right? Why do some people um, overcome challenges being like, having half your IQ, having half your height, strength, whatever, right? Having no legs, whatever it is, right? Why do some people succeed and other people who have, like I said, just exorbitant, just high number range in the IQ or physical strength or prowess, or they were born into money, all this kind of stuff, right? And I had a student a bunch of years back, Tony. One of his friends got this guy involved in a training and all that, right? And he very quickly dropped out, right? But Tony ended up partnering with him and somebody else to have a business, right? This guy just sucked the energy out, resources, all that kind of stuff, right? Came from money and was just an absolute screw up, right? Um, Eventually got cut off by his parents and stuff like that, right? Was taught all the tools, all the things that he needed, but was just lazy as shit. It's just thought that the world owed him something. And maybe that came from the fact that he had a cushy life. And then when he had to produce the results on his own, he didn't bother to learn the lessons that were being taught because, well, shit, somebody else is always going to take care of it anyway. I mean, I'm taught all these things and I'm taught the realities of the world, but I really don't have to worry about them because I got my room in a house that somebody else pays for. And, you know, yeah, I went out and got a job because they told me, but I got the minimum job I was willing to do because, well, somebody else is paying the mortgage, somebody else is paying the utility bill, somebody else is buying the frickin' groceries. Well, I buy my own food. Yeah, well, you bought frickin' fast food and all kinds of bullshit, but who's taking care of the stuff, right? So people can be taught the right lessons. I remember one time, way back in the day, my my kids. Well, I had two teenagers then they were teenagers, right? Two older ones. My daughter Kelsey, who's my middle daughter, she was way young. She had to be, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, because my daughter Trinity, who's now in college, going to graduate soon, move out in the world, right? She was just born, or maybe within a year or two, something like that, because she and Kelsey are 6 years apart. Um, Two of my students, one specifically, kept pointing out how lucky my kids were, right? Because we had to find this stuff. They by luck fell on it, right? I just kept looking through martial arts and stuff like that and self defense systems till I found something that matched what I knew I needed. Well, at least in part, right? Out in the world. And I was willing to jump around and give up good for better, better for better, right? Great, whatever, right? And so they thought that my kids were lucky because they were born into this. And I had to warn them that, look, they're born into this, right? So this is going to be everyday commonplace. And chances are they're going to take it for granted and not see it as valuable as you do. And sure enough, while my children had no choice but to train, to some extent, they all had to do something, right? Resentful or not, right? But they don't see the same value that James, you do, or other of my students do, right? Because they grew up in the dojo, right? So they got the lessons in spite of themselves, but seeing the value to the degree that a lot of my students do, because it was commonplace. And besides that, it was lessons from mom and dad. So, you know, parents, what do they know? Remember that old Will Smith song, right? Parents just don't understand. Maybe that's the problem, right? Some of us had parents that didn't understand. We had to be intuitive enough or whatever to find mentors and reverse engineer lessons and all that kind of stuff. But um, anyway, so we have to be careful. It's easy for ego to blame or to reason out why other people can, but we can't. But remember, no matter what kind of background somebody has, no matter what kind of advantages they seem to think they have, or whatever, right? One person's insurmountable challenge could be somebody else's cakewalk. But that same person cakewalking that challenge could run into one that's absolutely insurmountable. And you could look at it and go, well, dude, you just got to keep at it. Right. I remember in Miko training one time, I was talking with Sensei Hayes about this stuff. And it was in a big class kind of thing, but he made this reference to the same thing, right? You got this mom who's got a full-time job and she's working at least one part-time job that might be she's on her knees, right? Scrubbing floors after hours in a school or whatever to put her kid through college, right? She never went to college. She's holding down these menial jobs and whatnot, but it's so important to her that her child live a life that's different than this, right? Doing all this stuff every day is a grind every day, right? And yet she gets up and does what needs to be done because that's what's driving her, right? Because she wants them to have a better life, or these people that are working their asses off to have a better life than they grew up with or whatever, right? But then you got these celebrities, right? In whatever realm, right? Politicians, uber business successful, literally entertainer, celebrities or whatever, right? They've got everything, right? They've got everything they were taught that they were supposed to have. And that should have made life easy street, right? And it's not. And they still have depression. They still have frustration. They still have whatever it is that's supposed to be there to provide happiness and well-being and all that, and they don't. And they end up swallowing pills or a bullet or whatever because they've made it, and now the challenge is what the hell, right? So be careful, right? We have to understand the challenge. We have to understand what the problem is, right? And we have to be committed to overcoming it, right? To solving it, no matter what it takes. We have to believe that we can. This is on the mandala, right? This is 1,600-year-old graphic of the lessons that are over 2,500, well over 5,000 years old if we go back to the Vedas and the Upanishads and all these things that form the basis of this stuff way back, right? We have to believe that we can do it. We have to develop a plan. We have to break the problem down into small pieces that are actually doable. And recognize that if we take care of the pieces, the problem itself takes care of itself. But we have to be willing to do the work, right? the number of people that tell me how much they can't, right? They won't do it, but I would love for them to shoot video because I see how long they're on social media, posting every day and all this kind of stuff, right? All this bullshit stuff. Boy, I just had finished my third Mountain Dew for the day, and boy, was that tasty. Really, really, that was worth sharing to the world. But you can't take the time to figure out how, you know, well, since I don't have enough money, right? And well, how much do you need? Well, your program is, or this thing is this much, or okay, all right. So let's stop thinking about the fact that I don't have that much money, right? Because you can't have more money until you decide how much you need. And if that's too big of a chunk, then how about if we back it all the way down to, can you figure out how to make an extra $5 this week? Then next week, make it $10. Then the next week after that, make it 15. Oh, $15 is okay, $11. Whatever, right? Would things be different? Would you be able to manage figuring out how to make an extra $5? Shit, I could look around my house and find at least 50 items that I could sell on eBay for $5. I think I mentioned this in a previous KUDEN, right? Holy shit. Go through your house. Pull out all kinds of stuff. Well, I can make 50 cents for that. I can make $1 for that. That's $5. That's $20, whatever, right? And when you run out of your own shit that's cluttering up your house that other people are willing to buy because they don't have a fucking life outside of buying stuff. Oh, wait, excuse my language. They don't have a freaking life. You get the idea, right? Then go to all your damn lazy freaking friends and family members who got a bunch of shit laying around their house that are too lazy to clear out and go, hey, how about if I clear out your shit? Right? Do you know there's a whole bunch of people that look it up on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of people that are selling used shit. They've got entire multi I don't know if anybody's making $1 million yet, but I'm betting pretty close. They're making thousands, if not tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or a year, going to flea markets, yard sales, all kinds of stuff, right? Buying stuff, looking it up online. How much is that being sold for? Okay, great. Holy shit. Wow, that one's really worth that much? And they've gotten really good at going through these places and going, yeah, that's not going to sell. Oh, this is blemished here, whatever, right? Oh, these getting cleaned up. Oh, how much do you want for this? $5? Shit, online, I'm going to sell that. I'm going to sell a pair of sneakers for $60, right? And then learning how to sell it through, eBay, how it gets shipped out, all that kind of stuff, how to keep those prices low and all that, and literally have turned their garage into a storage thing. And all they do all day long, once or twice a week or month or whatever, they go to these places, Goodwill, whatever, buy this stuff, sort it, and they spend their days taking pictures, posting it with descriptions, taking orders, packaging stuff up, taking it to the post office. And they can do it whatever hour of the day works best for them. They figured out how to make money, a shit ton of money, out of other people's tons of shit. Because other people want to buy that stuff. And because everybody's lazy, instead of everybody running around to Goodwill and yard sales and whatever, right? These people know that lazy people hang out on eBay or whatever these other things are. And they spend their entire freaking day and their entire freaking paychecks, instead of paying bills and a rent and all that, scrolling, clicking buy now, scrolling, clicking buy now, and feeling all great about themselves when the shit comes in, and then not feeling good about themselves when they need to either pay their bills or that cool opportunity popped up and now they're complaining because they don't have any money and they don't know how to make any money or whatever. And they just bought shit from people that figured out how to make more money. Holy shit, right? You can go to YouTube and type in how to make money, and thousands of videos will scroll. There's your plan. Pick one. The trick is you got to be willing to get off your ass and not go, oh, well, that's cool. Oh, man, that's going to be hard work. Well, unless you've got an Aunt Minnie who's rich, and when she dies, she's going to will you $1,000,000. You ain't getting $1,000,000 unless you figure out. But again, if it seems insurmountable, break it down. How do I know about these other things? I was doing research on other things, and for whatever reason, the keyword I typed in popped up, and this guy said, made $6,000 this month at yard sales. Is this guy doing yard sales? Just as a curiosity, right? That was my cat video for the moment, right? Clicked on it. Holy shit, this guy's got a huge thing. And not only is he doing it, but he's posting, a bunch of these people are posting how-to videos so other people can do the exact same thing. They're not even worried about competition. So can you make an extra $5 this week? Well, I need a lot more than $5. Then repeat the process or aim higher. I am tired of hearing people bitching and complaining, living in some of the wealthiest countries on the planet. They're willing to bitch and complain about how people are screwing over other poor people and how they're getting screwed over, holding $1,000 supercomputer in the palm of their hand. That's part of one of the bills and reasons why they don't have money. Holding a supercomputer in the palm of their hand that gives them access to all the fucking knowledge they need to solve their damn problems. But what do they go to? They go to all the sites and all the memes and all those kind of things that remind them that everybody's out to get them. When all those videos on YouTube I was pointing out, everyday people doing everyday things, not in an everyday way, to produce the results that they decided they need. Instead of complaining about having a job they didn't like, they figured out a way to sell stuff that other people were selling. What do you call them? Thrift stores and all that, right? For pennies on the dollar, using what they already have, look it up, figure out how the process works, selling it for hundreds of times, if not only tens of times what they paid for it, to other people who are willing to pay that price. And how they know what people are willing to pay? They look it up. The stuff would not be listed on eBay as often as it is if people weren't buying it. And if you don't think it'll sell for that, then drop it 50 cents or $5 or whatever the difference would be, right? Need $1,000? Sell 1,000 things for $1 more than you paid for it. Don't forget to add shipping because the buyer pays shipping. But you only needed $1 in profit. Sell 500 things, you made $500. Of course, if you make $2 or $3 in profit, but be careful how much profit you make, especially if you hate people in business and how they're screwing people over. Because if you make too much profit, geez, you might turn into one of those people who pay more taxes in a year than most people make. But it's never enough to complainers anyway. But this is not about those. This is about solving problems. There's a process. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. Why is it still working? Because it works. I don't think the problem. what I have learned over the years is I can't re-educate the masses. What I have learned over the years is I could give someone the perfect solution, cost free. I could give it to them. If they're not willing to get off their ass and work the process, or if they don't have belief in themselves, or they're not passionate about making the changes or having the results, right? They're comfortable. They're comfortable until they're not, right? They're comfortable until that opportunity pops up and they don't have enough money, and then they go into bitching and complaining mode, or they're comfortable until the bills come due or whatever, right? As long as somebody else is writing the check, as long as somebody else is paying the bills, as long as I don't really need that. So what do you need? Anyway, right? So you need a sword the same way you need an airplane. You grind the damn thing down into small pieces, just dust, add it to your salt or whatever. Dip your finger in, whatever, a bunch of times, right? Not going to mess you up because it's tiny. How do I know that? Because we ingest iron all the time. We ingest carbon all the time, right? We ingest bits and pieces of things all the time. I don't want to gross anybody out by them finding out, while they're sleeping, what's laying eggs on their tongue or crawling around or crawling into their ears. If we don't think about it, it doesn't exist. Well, there's some things you can't do anything about, but the things you can, don't make it something it's not. Anyway, James, what do you have to throw on top of this fire? What have you discovered in the training that you once thought was impossible, or I don't know, really, really, really difficult that turned out to be maybe I'm having an earthquake here. Did it to myself on my table. That's really not what you thought it was, or you know where I'm going with this.
Um,
Awful deep subject, and I won't mention the shallow mind. No, just kidding. Sensei's an ass. Yep, and then some, but only to people who don't want to listen or don't want the answer.
I think it all just really comes down to, um, like, really just how bad you decide you want something. And you find out there's a lot more that when you say you can't do things, and then you start to realize it's just that you won't do things.
Hmm.
And you have to come to that realization that you make up a lot of excuses for yourself, and it's not a can't thing. It's just you won't for whatever. I mean, it might be just at that time or whatnot, but
You mean like a
under
temporary situation?
right.
Yeah, I believe a lot of it has to do with what I mean. It maybe not be laziness, because a lot of it has to do with what we've accepted, like other
Mm,
people defined us or they told us we were. I mean, I had an abusive, ass raising me, right? So, and he was a sixth grade dropout because he was raised in a poor family and had to go to work, right, at that age. And so, while he felt insecure in the world and always took a back seat, right, always believed that he couldn't do things and whatnot, in the household, man, the abuse was high because he had to keep people below that level. Do you know what I mean?
mhm.
So here I am carrying straight A's and all that, and he didn't never opened his mouth without calling me stupid or ugly or you know some kind of demeaning kind of things, right? So I mean, 18 years of that, quite the pounding, right? So, but still, I believe that everybody that's looking to do something and everybody that wants to do something, there is an innate in Mikyo we would say an innate Buddha nature. And I don't mean like you're like some kind of divine being or whatever. Although I do believe in people's inherent divinity. Um, I mean that there is this piece of us that's awake and that is reaching out for more. Call it enlightenment, call it mastery, call it success, call it whatever you want, right? So the very fact that you're reaching out for things or resentful that you don't have them or whatever however that shows up, right? There's this thing that wants more, deeper experience, whatever, right? The very fact that it's there is poking through this acceptance, right? So I believe those things are going on as well, right? Um, but need, all these things, want and need, and all that kind of stuff are subjective, right? Um, what I think is the problem, or the is a huge problem. I think I think the challenge for most people who are stopped by challenges is their own self actualization, right? One of the first lessons I got in this art, while most people are, focusing on the cool moves and the sunshine and all that kind of stuff, one of the first lessons that drew me in, based on Hatsumi Sensei's writings and teachings, and how that was translated by Stephen Hayes and all these things, these earlier teachers in the art, was this idea of the Tatsujin, right? The fully actualized human being, and how the first step in uh, achieving that, or realizing that, was in examining one's limitations to find out what really is our limit. Not what we believe it is, not what other people tell us it is, or whatever. I mean, ultimately, what we believe it is going to stop us, because that's the trap, right? But it's not about what we believe it is. It's not about what other people tell us it is. It's not what we think we're supposed to be doing or anything like that. Is in actually testing the limits, because you will find where your limits are as a human being, right? I mean, your limit is your limit, right? Like, no matter how much I do with deep breathing, right, to expand my lung capacity and all that, ultimately, genetically, physiologically, whatever, right, just human biology, I'm going to hit a limit as to how far I can inflate my lungs myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can grab other machines and inflate my lungs more. I might not like the result, but I can, I can work with it, right? Same thing with how far I can flex joints, right? And doing things and expand that range of motion, right? Our Junin Taiso does that, right? I think our art is just this magical thing, right? One of the first things I was taught about the Junin Taiso, right? Whether you call them the dragon exercises, or whatever, right? The Junin Taiso, what I was taught early in the training is that the Junin Taiso is there to combat the body's natural tendency to come to rest. Interesting, isn't it? We're taught relaxation, we're taught do less, but we're not taught dead energy, because there's a huge difference between, and this is how it was defined for me, finding out what's the least amount of muscle and tension I need to hold a specific position. Too much, I'm cooking off energy I don't need to cook off, and it will actually limit me and slow me down. Too little, and now I have to gear muscle up to go into action, right? So it's about finding that thing where, yes, you have to work, but you find that sweet spot where this amount produces the same amount or more than I thought I used to have to produce, right? I can actually relax this far and still produce the same amount. And if I do other things that work together, oh, I can produce way more than I thought, right? But it's about finding where your limits are. The irony that I always thought, my friends and I used to joke around about this, my peers and I used to joke around about the fact that we were working this damn hard to figure out how not to work hard, right? I mean, how much training, how much dojo time and all that, how much working with certain techniques and all that to find that one of the core principles of the Kyonapo, is energy conservation. How do I find the timing, distancing, and angling, right, to apply those movements, right, without excess work? But if I back it down just a little bit more, I can't do it, right? Something falls apart. The joint's too open, things are too relaxed. I'm at a point where I've got to do, I get stuck, or I have to do more, I have to force it, or whatever, right? When I have to force things, to look into it and figure out why the force is necessary. Where am I off? Is the timing off? Is the angling off? Is the positioning off? Right? What's off? Right? But that's a lot of work. And it's way more than most people want to do. Because if most people could snap their damn fingers and be Hatsumi Sensei, not be like Hatsumi Sensei, because the fantasy is, I want to be him. Right? Well, that's all great. But what's being ignored is the process. How many years? The man started training when he was 5 years old with a bokken. Yeah. How do I know that? You've seen the emails that come in, right? You've seen the bitching and complaining. You've seen the you're conspiring for me to fail. Excuse me? How is it my responsibility for your success? I can be a part of that. I can help you out with sharing the knowledge to get there, but I can't do it for you. And that was the other big lesson that we all got back in the day. No one can do it for you. But everybody wants to. And the analogy that kept being used, oh my God, the number of times this was said back in the day. Here I am making this mudra, sorry. The thing that kept being said over and over again is most people's problem is they want baby magic to be real. They want to be able to themselves wave a magic wand, but then for some people that's too much work. They want to be able to have a fairy godmother, fairy godfather, whatever, wave the magic wand and them to get whatever they wish for, or to be able to blow out the candles on the cake with the wish or whatever, right? Because everything else is too damn hard. They don't want to have to put in the work. Well, then you don't want to overcome your challenges. What you really want is for somebody else, either because you whined enough, complained enough, bitched enough, or bullied enough, including guilting and all that kind of stuff, for somebody to come in and remove the challenge so that your life is the cakewalk. Why the hell should you be any different than anybody else that's ever walked the fucking face of the planet? Because ego says so. Because we're still conditioned from those early years with mommy and daddy as God taking care of everything. And then as soon as we age, we want to get older so we get to do all the cool adult stuff, but we don't want all the cool, well, all the uncool stuff that adults have to overcome to be able to do all the stuff that makes the kid's life a cakewalk. And maybe I'm tainted because I didn't have that stuff. I mean, mom and dad took care of basic necessities, but everything else had to be figured out on my own from a very young age. So maybe I'm tainted. Maybe I had no choice. Well, that's not true because we all have choices. I could be bitching and complaining and all that too. And I'd be talking to a different group of people and not in this context. Right? Now the only things I have to worry about, and I don't worry about it, let me be very, very clear about this, because as the new videos come out, I already know. James, you already know because we saw it before, right? Instead of learning the lessons that they searched for to find, they're going to be shocked by this almost 60-year-old fat, bald guy who can move pretty decently, right? That's what's going to stop them. Not the lesson, not the stuff they went looking for, but their belief that whoever's teaching should look a certain way, sound a certain way, dress a certain way, and Their own perception will be their own trap. And then they're going to go find somebody who looks a certain way, talks a certain way, is built a certain way, or whatever. And they're going to follow that person regardless of whether or not the lesson is right. Because they've already determined what's important. It works in the way people vote. It works in the way people buy things. It works in the way people choose partners, right? And then it's always somebody else's fault because shit didn't work out. Or they bought into an abuser, a liar, a manipulator, whatever. What happened, man? Like, I voted for you. What happened? Your criteria for who you fucking vote for, or who you choose to hook up with, or who you choose to be friends with, right? You know, one of my mentors, we talk about him on a regular basis. Most people would not ever. I mean, he's made people have freaking panic attacks and throw up in the vetting stage, first day of his seminars, because he wants to get down to those 20, 30 people that actually stand a chance to be successful. Right. So, but he, anyway, but that's the kind of mentors I lean toward anyway. Where was I going with that one? It doesn't matter. Right. So I really don't care. I don't respond to the comments when somebody does that. There's plenty of other students that jump on that. Not that I need them to. Right. But if that's what draws somebody, see, my perspective isn't on how I convince this guy that I really know. That's not my job. My perspective is that person already disqualified himself as a good student. Because as soon as the teacher, any teacher that this person chooses, says, does, appears to be, or whatever, anything that's outside this person's God, they've decided that they are the definer of the world, right? As soon as anybody steps out of that, they're gone. They're done. Or they're going to be bitching and complaining or whatever. So they don't really want a teacher. What they want is somebody that will give them the confirmation bias they're looking for, all wrapped up with a neat bow to make them feel all warm and special. As a matter of fact, if they could show what they think they know, and the person will, do a certificate and give them some kind of an award or whatever for little to nothing, they'll do it. How do we know that, James? Go to the back of Black Belt magazine. Find all the certification things that if you pay them a certain amount, they'll promote you. Okay? There's one group that in their marketing, right? Are you not the rank you think you should be? Did your teacher piss you off and they're holding you back, that kind of stuff, right? Tell us the art you're in, the rank you want, and give us this amount of money. And now you are ranked in whatever art, at whatever level you want to be in this organization, and you were complicit in your own deception. What the hell does your rank matter? Unless you're trying to show off to somebody or feel good about yourself. What the hell's your rank matter? We've been in parades with the school, handing out stuff and everything, promoting the school. And I've gone to hand things to people and they've gone, oh, I'm already a black belt. And I go, oh, wow. What style? Tic-tac-toe, whatever, right? They name off something. And I go, oh, okay. So like you train now? Well, I haven't trained, since I was 9 or 15 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I haven't trained for over half my lifetime. And I believe that I'm going to be able to whip this shit out, because it's like riding a bike. Kind of. Because I've seen people hop on a bike after years and they're still wobbly for a little bit before they get back into the swing of things, right? Yeah, because like in a violent situation, you have a couple of minutes to be wobbly, right, before you get your shit together. Interesting. Anyway. Okay. You sound like you're as full of words today as you usually are when we have covered. Anything else you want to throw on this fire?
No.
No. All right. Pretty much said it all. And then some. Who's on? I've seen people come. I've seen people go. Not actual names. I just see the numbers go up and down, and you see it drop off every time I say something that like stabs.
Yeah.
Or I'm not entertaining enough. Maybe I should put on a red nose and a clown suit, and whatever. Right? Wear my Jimbo hoodie in my outfit that way. And speak like this. What you need to do. That's not who I was taught by. That's what said. Say, and I'm talking about way back in the day, not the guy he had to be publicly once he became identified as one of Japan's national treasures. Once he received awards and keys to cities, and marketing, right? So, anyway, which is on the mandala too, by the way. It's pretty cool. Of course, the symbols don't look right. So what's with the hook and the stick and the rope and the chain? They were elephant herding tools. It's a process by which I attract the right students to the dojo. We don't have time for that during this class. Anyway, who's on? Who do I need to say hi back to?
Actually, the only person that's commented is Jen said hi.
Sorry, those watching video just saw my cheeks puff out because I just took a big drink. On the other podcast sites and stuff, they just heard like silence. No, I didn't think badly of Jen. I was taking a drink. Hi, Jen. Anyway, all right. So nothing else? We all good?
We're good.
Nothing. This must have been one of. You know what? Next time, I'll have to look at my thing. Let me see. Let me bring up my schedule. Do I have it in front of me? I don't, but I can bring it up in like half a minute here. Where is? Might be nice if I clicked on the right icon. KUDEN podcast schedule. Let's see. Next week is supposed to be translating taijutsu, like the word taijutsu, and looking at the difference between Budo and Ninpo taijutsu. Huh. I think I did something like that on Whiteboard Wednesday where I looked at the difference between the three ways and how that's described in the scrolls. So we could do that. And yeah, maybe we'll get more people watching during that one because it's more in line with, how Yahweh cool moves instead of like looking in a mirror and, creating a life worth protecting. And this is not demeaning anybody. I once said that to somebody, and as a matter of fact, he wrote me an email, and I get these all the time. But he wrote me an email saying he really wanted to do this stuff, but he has no money. He barely has enough money. Doesn't even have enough money to make sure the rent's paid and the bills are paid. He's constantly playing, rob Peter to pay Paul and all this kind of stuff. But he really wants to get this stuff, but he really has no time and all this stuff. And I'm like, I just wrote back, and I'm like, maybe this isn't a good time to start. Maybe the first thing that has to be done is, you work on getting some day-to-day life equilibrium so that you can breathe. And then you could start on this other stuff, right? And I got this flaming email back that said I called him a loser. And how dare I say that he can't support his family. And he's, and I'm like, whoa. So my only response was, one, I didn't say that. Two, it was a matter of priority because, this is only going to take time that you don't have and resources you don't have, even if I gave it to you for free, and it's not going to make day-to-day life easier, which is what this art's supposed to do, right? So if you want to start there, we can certainly start working with the Seishin Techie, right? Personal clarity and development and all that, and then move into this other stuff, right? And so that's my offer. I mean, I don't know how you got from A to somebody else's alphabet, because not what I said, right? And but anyway, it's the abuse we take, right? Because the reality is most people don't want the truth, right? They want, I want the truth, but if you could just sugarcoat the hell out of it, so I get it with a whole bunch of, if I can get it the way I want it, right? I'll take the truth, right? When I started working with my Miko teacher, first session, and he made me stew on it for a good week or two. Do you really want to know the truth? And he said, be careful, because right now ego wants to say, well, of course, we wouldn't be talking if I didn't want to know the truth. And then he laid out a whole bunch of conditions. Do you really want to know this, 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 this? And they were punches in the heart kind of thing. And I'm going to let you think on that for a while. You come up with the answer one way or the other, you let me know. Because even if you say yes, if we agree to start this, every class, every lesson, every engagement is going to be a test on that answer that you give. If it's yes. I'm a nicer teacher than that. He would say something and stab me in the heart with it or whatever and laugh about it. Cool times, fun times. No, not really. Okay. And like I tell people, never said it was easy. I've only ever said it was worth it. So I guess that was what it comes down to. Whether it's a plane, a train, a sword that we're eating, or we're taking care of a big problem. Do we want easy, or do we want valuable? Do we want easy? Do we want worth it? Do we want to solve this problem, or do we want the tools to solve a shit ton of problems? What's that old thing from the Bible, right? Feed him or give a man a fish, you feed him for the day, right? Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Most people just want you to give them the damn fish, right? So anyway, if that's it, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And if you can stay on for a few minutes afterwards, so we can have our little meeting, that'd be great. Otherwise, nobody else needed to hear that. We're not going to edit it either. So I will talk to everybody again next time. So next week is defining taijutsu and looking at the difference between Budo taijutsu and Ninpo taijutsu, because these are two words that keep flying around and people use them interchangeably. Some people deny one and jump on the other and whatever. I can take a look at those because I think it's important that we're clear about what it is that we're actually talking about. If you're in the ninjutsu realm, if you're following this and you're in some other martial art or whatever, I don't know, maybe it'll be applicable to you. And if you can kind of adjust your mindset about it, that'd be great. If not, no harm, no foul. If there's something that you would like for me to jump on as a topic or whatever, you can always, get it to us. You can either send it to us via email at warriorc at warrior-concepts-online.com, or go to, if you're on Facebook, you can go to the KUDEN podcast page, post something, right? Or if you're on YouTube, you can go to any one of these episodes and pop something in the comments, and it should pop up as a notification for us, and we'll do something, right? That'd be awesome. All right. That's it. That's all I got. So I will talk to everybody again next time on the next episode of KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or subscribe at modernninjawarrior.com.